This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Subscribe to the podcast Beyond Politics. They host some of the biggest names and smartest minds. Beyond Politics is from a former Democratic congressman who helped ignite Barack Obama's campaign and a former campaign manager and political columnist. They go beyond the usual chatter on politics, news, science, and books. It's politics and everything beyond. On Beyond Politics, subscribe wherever you get your podcast.
Hey friends, how are you today? Welcome in to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and of course, our friends in Illinois. We're always happy to be with you as well. This is Nancy Nelson. I'm sitting in for Matt McNeil. Oh, when I said Illinois, excuse me, friends. WCPT 820. Chicago Heartland. We're glad you're there as well. As I was saying, my name is Nancy Nelson, sitting in here today for Matt McNeil. So don't be afraid. I know everybody loves Matty. I do too. Matty's on assignment. I was here last week for him, and he will be coming back, not to worry. But he was kind enough to invite me to come back and sit in the chair again. I'll do my best to fill the void, but I realize it's an uphill battle. You know, I was in this chair for many, many years here, Monday through Friday at AM 950. It mattered to me very much to be able to talk to you. Consider you a friend. If you're tuned in, you most likely are on the same side of the aisle as I am with your ideology. So we are already friends. And as friends, we recognize at this moment in time that it feels really good, huh? Things are really clicking along and going very well. And if we're smart, we also realize that it could be an uphill battle. I'm talking, of course, about the fact that it's just 1 week and 1 day ago that our beloved, and I do mean that, beloved President Joe Biden, under pressure such as we have never seen any other president face, went on the air and said, well, actually, he didn't go on the air until Tuesday, but he released an announcement. He was still ill with COVID and couldn't speak easily. But on that Sunday, a week ago, that he was stepping aside, that he did not want to step aside, that he still felt he had a lot to do. But he realized that his personal agenda and personal desires were not as important as the democracy and the United States of America. And therefore, with advisors talking to him, had decided it was in the best interest of democracy and America that he stand aside. Can you imagine the heroism that takes? The decency to one's core. Man has been in public life for 50 years. 50. You have any idea what it is to be in that life for 50 years? Endlessly facing the voters, endlessly fundraising, endlessly going to one rally or meeting or convention after another where there are people cheering for you and there are people shouting horrible names at you and vilifying you. The determination to be a public servant, particularly in today's environment, is nothing short of heroic. And that's what Joe Biden was for 50 years. If you were with us last week, we talked very honestly. I talked very honestly that I just flat out resented it. Had nothing to do with whether or not I thought Kamala would be an extraordinary candidate. I always knew she would be. It had to do with the fact that one by one, they left the ship. And then they formed a pack. And then they went on the airwaves. And they chased him down. Minute after minute, day after day, for about 3 weeks. It was relentless, one after another that he thought were allies. Publicly, not behind closed doors where they could have those conversations, but publicly. He's got to get out, he's got to get out, he's got to get out. It was painful, agonizing to watch. Every time I turned on the TV and there was another one saying that, it was like he was an innocent little bunny rabbit being chased down by a pack of dogs until he was cornered, and then they proceeded to rip him limb from limb. It was awful, and I don't know that I'll ever get over how awful that was, because he's been extraordinary. I mean, his record is unbelievable. But now we have Kamala. And let's talk about that, and let's talk about Trump, and let's talk about J.D. Vance, and let's talk about who might stand next to Kamala as she, yes, becomes the next president of the United States of America. Listen, this is never about me talking. I kind of can get boring pretty fast. I'm afraid you might already know that. So I need you to call me, please. 952-946-6205. One of the things I want to start with, although you can talk about anything you want, call me, 952-946-6205. Made a lot of news, and Trump, and they are talking about it a great deal. We know that Trump, within the MAGA base, is heavily supported by the evangelical community, something I have never, ever been able to get my head around. The evangelical community defines themselves as very proud and active Christians, and I have no understanding. Maybe you can explain it to me. I'm serious, of how someone can claim to be a Christian. Now, as I understand it, and in my world, in my personal life, being a Christian is to follow the teachings of Christ and to emulate his behavior. So I have no idea where evangelicals get from that, if I'm accurate in a definition of Christianity, to supporting Trump on any level. But we're afraid of Trump, and we should be. He's told us what he wants to do. And then Project 2025, which of course is in total support of him, has told us in 900 pages exactly what they will do. And that includes ending the public school system, getting rid of the Department of Justice, getting rid of the CIA, firing every single federal employee, and having every single federal employee, that's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, be political appointees, so that they are all people who supported Donald Trump. It's endless. It is dangerous. It is the flag going up that tells us democracy will end. And then, in an interview, he can't deny it, we saw him on camera, he said, yes, I do want to be a dictator. Well, maybe just on the first day. But yes, there's things I want to do and things yes, I want to be a dictator. Well, maybe just on the first day. Believe him. Yes, he wants to be a dictator. And remember that he's a liar. Maybe on just the first day. So, when he said this, ears perked up. Listen to this with me. You've probably already seen it somewhere on a TV reel, but it's okay. We're going to talk about it here. 952-946-6205. This is what Trump said, and everybody went, oh my gosh. Can you hear it? Patrick, is it there?
You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again.
Whew. My Christians. I love you, my Christians. I'm a Christian. Woo. Vote, and then you won't have to get out again in 4 years. It will fix everything. Vote. You won't ever have to vote again. Man, has that gotten attention. And it should. That is most certainly an announcement that he intends to become a dictator, and by definition that will dissolve the right, the privilege, the need to vote in a democracy. It's breathtaking. it's just breathtaking. 952-946-6205. What do you think about this underlying push within the particularly evangelical community. But what that means as we're going to the polls, people know I'm going to be on the air. They know where my political leanings are. So they're always sending me little things, little sayings, little whatever. And this fits into what we're talking about here. And Trump having the audacity to look good Christian people in the eye and say, I'm a Christian. I love you. I love you, my Christians. Somebody sent me this. Listen to this. You have to kind of almost read it a couple times so you don't mix it up. The man who cheated on wife number one with wife number... No, I'm starting over. The man who cheated on wife number one with number two, who got pregnant while he was still married to number one, then cheated on number two with number three, and then cheated on number three with a porn star, enjoys the full support of the, quote, family values, end quote, and conservative evangelicals. And then across the bottom it says, it's not just you, we're confused too. Yes. That really got my attention. The man who cheated on wife number one with number two, who got pregnant while he was still with number one, then cheated on number two with number three, and cheated on number three with a porn star. He enjoys the full support of the party of family values and conservative evangelicals. It's almost hard to breathe. How do we get there from here? Somebody else sent me something. It is interesting to see some people step forward out of deep concern for freedom, because the Republican agenda is interested in taking your freedoms away. It does not want women to have the freedom to determine what happens to their own bodies. It does not want you to be able to decide what books your children can and cannot read in school or in a library. It does not want everybody to be able to vote. It wants to make that much harder. They are very much about taking freedoms away. And at the same time, they will tell you, I want to take that freedom away from you, but it's really for your own good. Tim McGraw, who I would never, a country western star, right? I would never have thought for one moment he would ever speak about anything political, let alone would he tell us what side of the political aisle he is on. Somebody sent this to me. Tim McGraw is quoted as saying, I want to see a world where my daughters have control of every decision, whether it be medically, personally, or the way they want to live their lives. Yeah, me too, Tim McGraw. Guys, you're out there. It's Monday. I know you can hear me. This is better when you and I talk together. 952-946-6205. Nancy Nelson here for Matt McNeil on this Monday at AM 950 and WCPT 820 Chicago Heartland. Don't go anywhere, friends. Call me, and we are coming right back.
Where's my telephone?
Hey, friends, welcome back. AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820 Chicago Heartland. This is Nancy Nelson, sitting in for the one, the only, the astonishing, the ever adorable Matt McNeil. And yes, he'll be back. I know you miss him. He's letting me sit in today, a chair that I sat in for years. And, of course, Maddie and I followed one another. Oh, and yes, he's Matty. I know to you and to the whole world, he's Matt McNeil. Shortly after I met him, when I was first working here, and warm weather came up, in came this, too adorable to live guy wearing Bermuda shorts. It wasn't warm enough for Bermuda shorts, but Maddie loves his Bermuda shorts and pushes that envelope and wears them as soon as he can. And it has always been a term of endearment. I'm forever putting an IE or a Y on the end of somebody's name, and then I usually have to, out of respect to them, say, do you mind if I just gave you that nickname? It's a term of endearment to me. So very quickly, I was referring to him as we passed one another every day here in the palatial Palace of Versailles Studios at AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. I said one day something about, is it okay if I would call you Maddie? And he just stopped. Bermuda shorts, little knee knobs sticking out. And he said, well, nobody calls me Maddie. I said, oh. And he said, but I guess you can. It wasn't an exact endorsement. It was kind of a, if I don't tell you it's okay, I know you'll probably do it anyway comment. So that's why I refer to him as Maddie McNeil, and I have to be reminded that a lot of you don't necessarily identify him that way. During the commercial break, Patrick, you opened the door. I'm sorry, you said something to me about Maddie.
Yeah, Matt has a little update for us that he sent me. As he sent us a telegraph from wherever off the grid he is.
You're kidding. Okay, wait a minute, folks. This is Patrick, our studio engineer, who's gotten a personal message from the Matt McNeil. Please, Patrick.
Indeed. So Matt's telegraph coming in over the wire. Nancy, stop. Enjoying the 97th annual Sasquatch Conference. Stop. The hairy beasts are all really excited about Kamala. Stop. They cheat like Trump at golf. Stop. Back on Thursday after my flea and tick dip. Stop. Thanks for filling in, my dear friend. Stop. All my best to everyone, Maddie.
There you go. Oh, Maddie. And the applause roll in. Thank you, friend, for taking. Now, this is typical of Maddie. He's on assignment. And now apparently he's tipped that the assignment is at the Sasquatch convention. Or some other mythical place. But only Maddie would take time to, send the telegraph notice as he has. You guys, where are you? I need you. I mean, here I am sitting here saying this, and it's like I'm in a void. Give me a call, 952-946-6205. When we started, I was talking about the concerns of the underlying really, really significant religious movement. Now, I'm not telling people they shouldn't be religious. I am not disavowing Christianity or Judaism or any other faith or belief. I, within that, support of those beliefs for everyone. Am very concerned about our separation of church and state. So when we hear Donald Trump say something like, we just listened to it. When we hear him say, Christians, just vote for me, and then you won't ever have to vote again. It's like, that it does sort of take your breath away. And I keep pulling up these different things, but you remember it's, I should have the exact dates. It's not all that long ago, within a few months, that the Louisiana legislature passed a law that said the 10 Commandments has to be posted in every single classroom. And they made it a law. Interesting that they did it in spite of the fact that way back, I think it was in 1980, the Louisiana Supreme Court struck down a similar thing about having the 10 Commandments in classrooms. I was at an event, and everybody was talking, and dangerously, ultimately, the subject of religion came about. I was absolutely stunned by how many in this group said there's absolutely nothing wrong with having the 10 Commandments posted and having prayers in schools. Kids should start their school day in public schools with a prayer before it starts. And I said, well, what prayer would that be? And the answer came back, well, we're a Christian nation, so it's going to be a Christian prayer. And they believe that. Whatever the majority religion is in America, we are not a Christian country. We are a country that has separation of church and state by our Constitution, and it was deeply held by our founding fathers, who, of course, had seen what religious insistence and bias and prejudice had done to a civilization, and they wanted no part of it. So they wanted to ensure to each and every one of us within the Constitution that we have the certain, unquestioning right to believe in whatever religious faith we want. We also have the right to not believe in any. We also have the right to see to it that one's religious belief does not encroach or overtake the others. So I was in a group of people who are intelligent. I respect them. I like them. I couldn't believe it. It took my breath away. Well, we're a Christian country, so we should have Christian prayers in school. And I said, let's assume for just a moment that the majority of the population, if we believe this is true, is not Christian. Let's assume for just a moment, for the sake of conversation, that the majority religion in America is Buddhist. How do you feel about the children all standing up and having a Buddhist prayer before school starts? Oh, back stiffened and they stood up and it was like, and sat up straight rather, and it was, well, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. We're a Christian country. They were absolutely offended, appalled at the very idea that there would be some kind of prayer that wasn't Christian, because we're a Christian country. So they were very interested in propagating their beliefs. They just weren't interested in anybody else's. Again, separation of church and state. All of this is by way of getting to yet another thing that somebody sent me shortly after the Louisiana state legislature said you've got to put the 10 Commandments up in every single classroom. This is what somebody sent me. Posting, oh, music is coming in. Patrick, thank you for the help. Listen, there's a good teaser. You stay here because I'm going to tell you what this very interesting thing is. Food for thought. And where are you? 952-946-6205. Give me a call. Nancy Nelson sitting in for Matt McNeil. And we're coming back, friends. Don't go anywhere.
No chance.
Hey, friends, welcome back in. Nancy Nelson, AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, keeping the chair warm for the one and only Matt McNeil. Yes, this is his show. Yes, do not be afraid. Matt is coming back to you. I know you miss him very much. We all do. I'm sitting in today, and I'm so grateful to be here. And happy to be talking to the folks tuning in to AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago Heartland. Glad you're here. 952-946-6205. When we went to the commercial break, I suggested to you that somebody had sent something to me. I've been talking about concerns about keeping the constitutional mandate, separation of church and state, very much alive, because there's no doubt that an awful lot of the restrictions, the freedoms being taken away that are galloping in, have a lot to do with deeply conservative religious beliefs. Taking books off the shelves that you don't like because you think they have something offensive per your standards. In spite of the fact that we have an amendment that gives us freedom of speech and the right to read things. So the concerns run deep, and it's nothing to ignore. I was talking about the fact that the Louisiana governor only recently, within the last few months, the legislature passed a law. He signed it into law, requiring all classrooms, K through high school, actually K through college, yes, any state-supported college, all have to post in every single classroom the 10 Commandments. That may or may not stand. The Louisiana Supreme Court looked at a similar law that they tried to put into effect way back in 1980, and they said, nope, no, you can't. However, we're in a very different climate today. If you can imagine, we're more conservative now than we were then. So with all of that in mind, and with the little story I told you about talking to people who said, yes, I think we should have prayer in school. And I said, whose prayer? Well, we're a Christian nation, I was told. No, we're not. No, we're not. We are a nation with rights for everyone to have all of the religious beliefs that they want. So somebody sent me this because they knew I was having this conversation. And it says, and what do you think? 952-946-6205. It says, posting the 10 Commandments in Louisiana public schools should open the doors for also posting the 5 pillars of Islam, the 5 precepts of Buddhism, the 613 Jewish mitzvot, the Zoroastrian commandments, the Dharma of Hinduism, the 5 principles of Shinto, and the diasporic religion of Haitian Voodoo, to mention but a few of the over 6,000 estimated religions practiced on Earth. Really? If we have separation of church and state, and we say we want to start putting up religious teachings, like the 10 Commandments, don't we have to put them all up? Don't we have to put them all up? What do you think? 952-946-6205. Steve in Minneapolis, how are you today?
Oh, a little sweaty.
I'm sorry I asked.
Yeah.
Steve,
Anyway,
what's on your mind?
Well, first, good to hear your voice again. I used to call you occasionally when you had your regular show.
Well, thank you for that. Nice to see you again, too.
And like Matt, I'm a former practicing Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a suburban church. This is quite a few years ago now. And I wound up somehow becoming the chair of the Social Justice Committee.
Within the Catholic Church that you were a member of?
Correct.
Okay, got it. I'm with you.
And then the church sold a whole bunch of land off to a developer, and they're supposed to do some affordable housing. And what they meant by affordable was $350,000. This is in 2000. Yeah. So the congregation grew and got a lot more wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they pushed out the old leadership, and we wound up really being ostracized because, I mean, for example, shortly before the second Gulf War, we wanted to put a peace pole up in the churchyard, and we were flatly denied. And one woman hissed at me that I'm a Christian, not a pacifist. And I went, well, you need to go back and read your gospel then. And eventually the nun I worked for got forced out, and I left. So
that is your trail. And bring us up to where we are now as we are talking about, yes, supportive of people's religious beliefs. That's not in question, of course. But the concern about separation of church and state and how individual religious beliefs have crept in and crept in and crept in. We have at least one Supreme Court Justice, Alito, a Catholic, talking about how we ought to have religion just about everywhere, and we ought to be making decisions based on religion. This is a big deal. This is of concern. I assume you agree?
Yeah, because they leave out the good parts. You know, Matt talks about this all the time, that Matthew 25, about welcoming strangers and feeding the hungry and all that fun stuff. They don't want to do that. They want to, I mean, as I understand it, Old Testament is basically Judaism.
Primarily, it's a simplification, but it primarily.
I know there's other parts to it.
And the New Testament began to be written after the time of Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've had this argument with several relatives. They said, well, what makes a Christian Christian? Christ. What did he say? You know, pay attention to that, not something that happened 3,000 years earlier. So
Steve,
that's my spiel.
thank you. We were happy to hear your spiel. Thank you for your story, Steve. Have a good day. We're talking here on AM 950 Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Nancy Nelson in for the Matt McNeil. He'll be back. 952-946-6205. Steve said something about perhaps really for people who want to wear their Christianity as a banner, and God bless them, literally. Supportive, yes, do that. Wearing it and living it are two different things. I would never presume to judge anyone's belief or behavior within that belief, but from afar I can observe and have my own opinions as to whether or not, by my definition, and they don't have to live by my definition, but by my definition, is this Christian behavior. Somebody sent me another thing that said, let's please remember that if you read the Bible, Jesus fed the poor. And that, of course, was directed to, don't pay taxes. Don't let them be on welfare. Don't give them food stamps. Don't. But the golden rule, I think, is familiar to so many, certainly in the Christian community. And you'll remember, it is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I've always thought it's just brilliant. Just brilliant. It pretty much wraps everything up, doesn't it? It's almost as if you don't have to have anything else at all. If I don't want anybody to steal from me, and I do unto them as I want done unto me, I don't ever steal. If I don't want anybody to be hurt or hit or shot by a gun or raped or any number of things, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, that's a wrap. If you followed that, nobody would ever hurt anybody. Nobody would ever steal anything from anybody. That's a nice dream, isn't it? So I went looking for a similar simple precept, if you will, that might be expressed in other religions. Listen to this. How many religions have a very similar simple sentence of prescribed behavior. So Christianity says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Buddhism, hurt not others with that which pains yourself. Hinduism, treat others as you would yourself be treated. Islam, do unto all men as you would wish to have done unto you. Judaism, what you yourself hate, do to no man. Native American, live in harmony, for we are all related. When I found that, I thought it was so interesting. Across all those lines where many would say, well, I'm so different from any Buddhist I ever know. I'm so different from any Jew. That basic precept is almost exactly the same across all of those religious beliefs. I was actually really excited when I found that. I thought that is so beautiful. Beautiful. There is another thing that I wanted to share with you, and I'm almost hesitant. I should be careful. This is not the religious hour with Nancy Nelson. It's been so much on my mind, and I know it's because, and I'm going back to what I did at the beginning of the hour, the quote of Donald Trump. My Christians, I love you, my Christians. I'm a Christian myself. Just vote for me, you Christians. If you just vote once, you just have to vote this time, and I'll take care of everything, and you never have to vote again. That's really where all of this started, because that runs a chill down your spine. I mean, he's done everything but say, vote for me. I promise I'm going to end democracy, and you won't ever vote again. That's basically what he's saying. But it brought us around to the extreme base that he has within the evangelical community, and how confusing that is to so many of us, because it seems to me, and this is, I know it sounds judgmental, I don't know how else to say it, if anyone seems to not be a Christian, almost the Antichrist, it is Donald Trump. his behavior, his adultery, his cheating people, his lying, and yet the evangelical community has absolutely embraced him. Can you explain that to me? Where do they find within a Donald Trump somebody to embrace? 952-946-6205. Another thing somebody sent me. We talk so much about, well, that's not a moral thing. That's not a religious thing. You're not going to go to heaven. You'll go to hell. And all of this now is muddled into our political life. It's kind of all the same speak. Listen to this one. When we die, God isn't going to ask us about the two men down the street who got married. He won't ask us about the girl who had an abortion. He won't ask us about the atheist that lives on the corner. He won't ask us about the woman who feels more comfortable as a man. He will ask us how we loved those people as he called us to do. And some of us didn't. I like that. I like that a lot. You're all familiar, of course, with Cory Booker. He is, I ought to know this, Cory Booker is a representative from what state? Oh, my gosh, help me. There, I need that help. 952-946-6205. Patrick, Cory Booker, New Jersey?
I believe it's New Jersey. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I think so.
90% sure it's New Jersey.
You should throw me off the air for not knowing that. I knew it, but it just went away. Anyway, Cory Booker is very well known for this statement that he made at a fundraiser when he was running for re-election. And again, the whole question of religion. And he said, "Don't speak to me about your religion. First, show it to me in how you treat other people. Don't tell me how much you love your God. Show me in how much you love all God's children. Don't preach to me your passion for your faith. Teach me through your compassion for your neighbors. In the end, I'm not as interested in what you have to tell or sell as I am in how you choose to live and give." Okay, we are coming back. Nancy Nelson. Call us, 952-946-6205. Sitting in for Matt McNeil. Don't go anywhere. Hey, friends, welcome back in. Nancy Nelson, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago Heartland. Sitting in the chair for the one and only Matt McNeil, who's on assignment, and yes, you're getting him back. In the meantime, I'm just so glad to be sitting here with you. I've been talking primarily this hour, one of you gave us a call, about this whole concern many have of separation of church and state, and how everywhere we look, it is creeping in, and that amendment of separation in church and state is not being honored as many of us think it should be, and many of us are frankly concerned about the encroachment of specific religious values of a specific sect of religious belief into anything that is part of our governmental system. And no, it's not because I'm against religion or religious people or anything of the kind. It's because if we let religion into our classroom or any of the or our political world or our public community system, if we let religion in, whose religion do we let in? If you're a Christian and you're saying, hey, fine, let's do Christian. Okay. But what if somebody comes along tomorrow and says, yeah, there's more Buddhists now than there are Christians. So let's have Buddhism rule a lot of our social systems and how we make our decisions. And therein, of course, lies the problem. That's why we have separation of church and state and why we'd better hang on to it real tight. J.D. Vance has really been taking a hit. for comments that he's made. He, of course, is the vice presidential candidate. And it's been fascinating to watch the tumble. So many advisors say that Trump, of course, barely vetted anybody. I know what I want to do, and I'm the guy, and I'm the hero, and I'm the boss. And so he chose that he wanted J.D. Vance, not necessarily with any input from anybody, not necessarily with the normal vetting system that would have gone back and said, hold it, now we're going to look at every vote he ever made and every interview he ever did, which is, talk about your past coming back to haunt you. Mine would come back to haunt me, which is why I never ran for political office. and I'm guessing most of us are in the same boat. But that's why they have a vetting process. Trump, of course, never did that. And then, to their great surprise and consternation, Joe Biden says, I'm stepping aside, and I endorse Kamala. And they're furious. I mean, they are so angry. They're terrified to run against her. They were so sure they were going to beat Biden that nobody cared who he named as his vice presidential candidate. We got this in the bag. All they care about is Big Donald and hey. But now, with the flip to Kamala and the surge of interest and support and energy, the Republicans are absolutely livid. They have talked about suing because how dare you change your candidate? Is that typical Donald Trump or what? I thought your candidate was going to be that one. And how dare you, within the democratic process, decide you're going to have a different candidate? I want to sue you for that because you shouldn't have a different candidate. Patrick, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, you have the people complaining, like, all this merchandise I had that said, let's go, Brandon is useless, and I can't sell it anymore, and that's Kamala Harris's fault.
I know. But it is absurd to the 10th degree. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but man alive, they are just so upset that he has to face Kamala. And you remember, he was very anxious to have that second debate in September because of how poor Joe, exhausted on some cold medication, bad cold, did so poorly. And, of course, that's what started the ball tumbling away from him. But, man, Trump couldn't wait for that September debate. And he's already started to throw out things and say, well, maybe I won't. It really ought to be on Fox, and maybe I won't. Of course he won't. Of course he won't. And the Democrats better make hay of that like crazy. He is terrified to sit or stand across from Kamala Harris. She will make mincemeat out of him. And he knows it because she is intelligent and capable. Somebody sent me this thing that says, don't forget, a national IQ test will be held on November 5th. Obviously, the implication that if you have all of your marbles, you will only vote for Kamala Harris. That's mean of me to say. You can exercise your democratic right to vote for whomever you want. But why would you vote for Donald Trump? Get a grip, you guys. One of the things that has been so interesting with this whole J.D. Vance thing is the uprising of the women. You heard the comments. Well, it's these childish cat ladies who are unhappy with the choices they made in their life because they chose to not have children, who are running for office and ruling us. I mean, you talk about a slap in the face. And then he went from there. He's been on television just occasionally trying to fix it, smooth it over. Yeah, not working. Not working, JD. And when they're buying more airtime, you can be sure that they're just going to keep running those things on a loop. He also said that he thinks people who have children should have more power when they vote because they actually have an investment in the future, and people who haven't given birth have no investment in the future. Like, oh, you didn't have a child, so you don't give a darn as to what happens to anybody ever. He's thinking of the Republicans, not the Democrats. And then he said, and people who have had children should have greater tax advantages because they are contributing to our society by having children. JD, you're a senator. Study this. You already have special tax advantages because you have children. It's called the child tax credit. Ugh. Okay, kids, we're ending this hour in place of Matt McNeil, Nancy Nelson here at AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. We're going to say goodbye to WCPT 820 Chicago Heartland. We are so very happy that you're with us. And we're coming back the next hour. We're going to start talking about Pete Buttigieg. Did you see him on Sunday on Fox TV? He was great. If you missed him, I'm going to play him for you. Now, remember this, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota, Nancy Nelson in for Matt McNeil. Matt will be back. And in the meantime, I'm so happy to spend time with you. I've missed all of you so much. And my friends, go out and make a difference. Hi, friends. Welcome in to AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Doesn't that sound nice? The Progressive Voice of Minnesota. My name is Nancy Nelson. This, of course, is the Matt McNeil Show. Do not be afraid. Matty is coming back to you. He is on assignment. And he invited me back. I was here last week and then a little before that to sit in the chair and try my best. Nobody can ever fill in for Matt, but I am just so thrilled to be here. You know, I sat in this chair and was with you Monday through Friday for many, many years. I have to tell you, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't miss you, and I mean it. I absolutely love being here talking with you. I feel like we're all one big family. We have similar ideology. We have similar passions, and it gives us a great deal to talk about and a great deal to share. I miss you, but hey, I'm with you today, so thanks very much for being here. And you know what? I really would like to talk to you, so give me a call. Whatever is on your mind. I'm blithering on about lots of things. I jump around like a frog sometimes because I have 17 things in my brain all the time. But I want to hear whatever you're thinking about what's going on today, what you're concerned about, what you're pleased about, what you're afraid of. 952-946-6205. Okay. We, of course, are in what everybody calls the honeymoon period. It is just 1 week and 1 day, last Sunday, that Joe Biden stepped aside, and then 20 minutes after he told the nation he was stepping aside and not running for re-election, he endorsed Kamala Harris. And boom, everything exploded. She has set one massive record after another. Within the first 48 hours, raised $1 million. Within a number of days, 178,000 volunteers. The millions raised. A remarkable statistic: over 60% of that money came from people who have never donated to a campaign before. What that means, of course, and the excitement of that is that she's attracting new people in. And here's the deal: we're in the honeymoon period. Most people are not going to stand on the ceiling the way we are for the next 3 months. Yay, yay, yay. But as they pick up the phone and say, let me volunteer, and volunteer numbers have broken all records across the nation. I want to volunteer to help. As they call in and say, all I've got is $5, but I want to donate it, and they've never done that before, they may not stay at the same level that those of us who do this every day will, but they're in. They've committed. They spent their money. They made their phone call. They're not going to not vote. And that's the deal. Vote, 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 vote. We have to vote. And when Kamala did her first appearance publicly after Biden stepped aside. Well, the first one was on the White House lawn with the young athletes, but then she went to a campaign headquarters, and she gave a wonderful speech, and a portion of it has been played over and over again, and it addresses the accusation that she immediately faced that she's not up to Trump. She doesn't have the wherewithal to do this. After all, she's a woman, and she's a woman of color. My goodness sakes, it makes it impossible for her to be able to do this. Well, we know her history. As a matter of fact, somebody said the other day that from the time she became a public defender, she was an attorney general, she was a senator, she has been in public life in the help and the service of community 3 times longer than J.D. Vance and Donald Trump combined. 3 times longer. So chew on that one for a while. She's been to the rodeo and back, and it's going to take a lot to smash her down. I just don't think they can. So this was her first very deliberate, I am sure very well thought out, I am sure very carefully written declaration. And she used the term, I know how to prosecute this, because she'd been a prosecutor. And I think she intends to prosecute this campaign and prosecute the messages that she wants to get out and prosecute Donald Trump in the process. So listen to this. And, oh, by the way, somebody's calling in. I promise I'm going to get to you. Listen to this with me. 952-946-6205. This is what Kamala said. I know you've heard it, but it's worth playing about 1,000 times between now and November.
I know Donald Trump's type. And in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his.
Yes, she will. Now, that was the end of what she said. But, now wait a minute. I want to get to the beginning of what she said. Here we go. Oh, come on. It's always difficult when...
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Woo! I was at home watching television when she did that, and you heard the people cheer. I literally stood up off the couch and started to applaud. And you know what is particularly powerful about that? And of course, the Republicans just hate her already. They hate us. But while Donald Trump is out there calling her a loser and a dummy, and J.D. Vance is calling women like Kamala, who never biologically gave birth, albeit she's apparently a very successful stepmother to 2 daughters. Well, J.D. Vance is calling her a cat lady and devaluing her because she didn't physically give birth. She is not calling names that belittle, that bully. She is simply stating a fact. This is what I did. And who do you think she was talking about when she said, I prosecuted people who abused women? I prosecuted fraudsters. That's who he is. That's what he did. He's been in a courtroom that has proven that he has done those things over and over again. And I'm very proud of that. I'm a little concerned even that the term, and it came from our Governor Walz, who I absolutely love, but he, on a show, and I'm going to play it later, described the GOP as, he finally said, they're just weird. What they believe in, what they're trying to propagate is just weird. And everybody's picked it up. And so even Kamala, I think yesterday, said, you know, they're talking about, they're weird. They're talking about that. And I hope we stop that. I don't like it when anybody calls anybody names. I think it's bullying. I think it is designed specifically to belittle and diminish their humanity, and I'm not interested. I think it's wrong to diminish, yes, even Donald Trump's humanity. We can argue later how human you think he is, but we don't do that. You know, it was Michelle Obama who said, when they go low, we go high. We can make all of our points with all of the evidence we have in front of us. without belittling and demeaning and becoming people who do that and think it's okay. I don't want us to do that. But I do want to talk to you at 952-946-6205. Julie, you are a woman with great patience there in Minneapolis. I'm sorry I kept you holding so long. How are you doing?
No, very interesting. I've heard a lot of the quotes. You know, I want to defend for a moment Governor Walz using the term weird.
Sure.
I heard an explanation of you know, why you would use a word like that. They're trying to communicate with the working class, the working man, the working woman, get plain language, rather than all these highfalutin arguments. It's weird. So and I thought, oh, okay, I kind of get that. It's simplistic, in other words. But I get what you mean about name calling. I had to say a couple of things about the cat lady. I'm a very proud cat lady. Are you a cat lady?
You go, Julie. You go. You know what? Is it ridiculous? Now here's this name calling thing. Why are we even having this conversation? Why are we having a conversation about women being defined as women, whether or not they gave birth? What?
Well, I'll tell you what, none of the presidents we have had in America have ever given birth, have they?
Well, and you know my theory on that. If men gave birth, every child on the planet would be an only child.
Well, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
What Vance said was, okay, miserable cat ladies, rule the world. The oligarchs, the billionaires rule the world. Who is he trying to mislead? What a stupid comment.
Well, there's a lot of stupid comments that are being made. And I think, do you agree or disagree with me? I think it's just very important for us to decide where our moral compass is and decide what our conversation is going to be like and decide we're going to use the facts and human decency and regard and respect. And I believe we can win handily with all of that.
I hope there has to be a tsunami. The only way we're going to win is if there's a real tsunami of voters, Democrats.
We need down ballot.
You know they're going to try to cheat. You know they're going to suppress votes. There's got to be a tsunami. We've got to reach the undecided in the states. You know, Minnesota is cool. I mean, we were ahead 8 or 9 points when Mr. Trump came in here. Do you recall what he said a couple of weeks ago? I'm going to break the blue wall.
Yeah, right. Well, you do that, Donald, and have a nice day. Julie, I'm glad you called. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Good Monday. Hey, friends, 952-946-6205. Look, I don't know that this is going to happen. I don't know how likely it is. I want you to call and tell me what you think. But our Governor Tim Walz is on the short list. And we've been talking about this comment about weird. It is attributed originally to Walz. And he's a nice guy. He didn't say anything nasty. But this is how it came about. So I'm trying to pull this up. Okay. I think I've got it. You tell me, Patrick, if I'm getting this. This is ridiculous. I am not a techie. I can't figure any of this out. But here we go.
Thing about small town America. My town had 400 people in it, 24 kids in my graduating class, 12 were cousins, and he gets it all wrong. It's not about hate. It's not about collapsing in. The golden rule there is mind your own damn business. Their policies are what destroyed rural America. They've divided us. They're in our exam rooms. They're telling us what books to read. And I think what Kamala Harris knows is bringing people together around the shared values, strong public schools, strong labor unions that create the middle class, health care that's affordable and accessible. Those are the things. You look what they're talking about. They went right to division. They did not give us a plan on health care. Donald Trump talked about infrastructure. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris built bridges, built roads. So I think this is going back to the bread and butter, getting away from this division. We do not like what has happened where we can't even go to Thanksgiving dinner with our uncle because you end up in some weird fight that is unnecessary. and I think bringing back people together, well, it's true. These guys are just weird. people like J.D. Vance know nothing.
Well, it's true. He said, these guys are just weird. Well, okay, Tim. Yeah, okay. We'll be careful of the name calling. I do want to talk a lot more about Tim Walz. And, you know, those of us who take him for granted as our governor, sometimes we don't know a whole lot about these people. And we should. So what I'm going to do, Gail is on the line. Gail, please stay where you are. Don't go away. The rest of you call us at 952-946-6205. When we come back, I want to hear what Gail has to say. And then let's explore a little bit more about our Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, and why he is one of the 6 that is being currently vetted and the kind of credentials he really has. It's impressive. Nancy Nelson sitting in for Matt McNeil here at AM 950 Progressive Voice of Minnesota. My friends, 952-946-6205. You come right back with us.
You might know of in constant sorrow all through his days. I am a man.
Okay. Just a little aside. You know what that's from, Patrick? I know you do. That's from the movie Brother, Where Art Thou? By the Coen brothers, famous here from Minnesota, and goofy movie. And there was a chorus of 3 men on an old-time radio show singing that song, and one of them was George Clooney. I hadn't heard that in years. I just love it. Thank you, Patrick. Hey, how you doing? Nancy Nelson here, friends, at AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. I want you to talk to me. 952-946-6205. Sitting in for Matt McNeil. A happy day. They're letting me sit in. Thank you for letting me be here. We have kept Gail on the phone in St. Paul for a while. Thank you for your patience, Gail. Come on in.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, thanks for making me think about George Clooney. I'm still mad at him.
I kind of took that hard too. You're talking about because he had been he supported Biden. He had a big giant fundraiser for Biden out at the Hollywood Bowl, and then he said, but apologized to Joe as he did it. He said, "I'm so sorry, but I think we have to save the democracy." And then, though I'm very disappointed in him, afterwards he came out with a beautiful letter praising him as one of the great patriots America has ever known because of all of the sacrifices of 50 years and then this extraordinary sacrifice. So let's try to forgive George a little bit.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I just think I'm just so mad about the way they did it.
I agree.
And so apparently they were withholding funding from these Congress people. I mean, you'll notice that the Congress people that came out were not very well known, you know. I mean, they depend on funding. They depend on donors. And apparently they weren't getting their donor money. So that's why they were coming out, apparently. So anyway, that's not why I called.
Why did you call, Gail?
Well, I called to push back also on the weird factor.
Okay. Just to refresh, we're talking about the fact that I just ran a little soundbite. Tim Walz, with gentleness and kindness, said, "I don't know about these GOP. They're just weird. They want to take our books away. They're just weird." And everybody picked it up, and now they're talking about the GOP being weird. And I expressed concern that I don't want us to start being name callers and bullying.
Okay, but that's not the same thing as name calling. That's pointing out a fact. And I do hope they stop using the term weird because it's
Gail,
getting
old. Let's have this. That's adorable, and it's exactly how I
true.
would. Hold it. It would be if I wasn't on the radio. I'd probably be agreeing with you. But I mean, it's. You just said it's not bullying to call them weird. It's a fact. Trump would say it's not bullying to call Kamala stupid. She is. It's a fact. So the fact lies in the heart of the giver.
That's why I said they shouldn't keep using the word weird, but it is important to point out that this is not normal. And that's what Joe Biden was saying when he was talking about the Supreme Court. This is not normal. Look how far we have fallen in 9 or 10 years to where we don't even recognize what's normal anymore.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that someone ascended to the presidency that can barely read and write, and I mean, and then the media never vetted him, and the media continues to normalize him. And now people just accept it, and the constant double standard about picking Joe Biden apart for if he messed up a word or whatever, which is something I do 100 times a day. Yeah. I know I don't have dementia, but look at, they don't talk about the constant rambling about Hannibal Lecter and sharks and electrocution and toilets and windmills and
well,
sound effects he's out. But
maybe it's because
maybe
it's because I'm plugged into a television set all the time in just about every room in my house. I hear them talk about that a lot. But I do agree with you that certainly in that 3-week period after the debate, it did seem that the pile-on was exclusive to Joe, and they stopped. It is interesting. What do you think about the fact that now we are starting to see the coin flipped, and some Democrats are talking about Trump's age at 78?
I think it's funny.
Well, it's fine. It was relevant to the Republicans when they wanted to use it as a hammer, and so yeah.
But I don't want it to become about ageism, because there are people that in their 90s that are functioning just fine. It's just about competence. And I think Joe, he's fully competent. I just think that the wear and tear of campaigning in addition to being president, was probably getting to be too much.
Gail, I used to cover, when I was a television news anchor, I covered so many campaigns. And I thought I was going to die from exhaustion after being with these folks for one day. And I was simply following them around. I wasn't giving the speech and shaking the hands and going down the lines and smiling and going, yeah. I was just following them around. What they do is just about impossible, but they do it. Gail, I'm going to let you go.
Can I say one more thing? Because
Absolutely.
This was really the reason I wanted to call.
Okay.
When you were talking about his speech, when he talked about telling Christians they wouldn't have to vote anymore.
Yes, yeah.
The first thing that I thought of when he said that was, how is it legal for a party to run a candidate that's blatantly saying they're going to destroy the Constitution? Isn't the Constitution the law of the land?
Well, yes, but if someone installs himself as a dictator and has support to do that, they do anything they want.
But why isn't there enormous pushback about a party running a candidate in a democracy, in a functioning democracy,
you tell me.
These are the things they're going to do?
You tell me 36% of the American public is a hardcore MAGA. That means when you and I are standing in a room of 10 people, almost 4 of them are MAGA. They are saying, yes, I want my democracy to end. Yes, I don't want my children to grow up in a democracy. Yes, I want the judicial system gone. Yes, I want them to get rid of Social Security. Yes, I want them to get rid of Medicare. That's what they're saying yes to.
But they don't even know they're saying yes to all that stuff half the time.
Well,
and that's why it's important to keep pointing out that this is not normal. If you want to use the word weird or strange or whatever, but it is important to keep pointing out that this is not normal. Look how far we have fallen in 9 or 10 years.
Yes, Gail, we are in agreement. And you can use the word weird all you want to. Thanks for calling in, friend.
All right.
Okay. This
Bye-bye.
is Nancy Nelson. Thanks, Gail. At 612. No, it's not. I'm not going to give you my home phone number. At 952-946-6205. Please do call Terry in Columbia Heights. Come on in.
Hi, Nancy. First of all, I want to say I'm a long-time fan. It's nice to hear you on the radio again.
Nice to be on the radio with you, Terry. Thanks.
I just heard the clip. I had to pull over. I was driving. I pulled over so I could call you about the Tim Walz comment about weird.
Yes, yeah.
First of all, you want to know what's weird is they went from the time Joe Biden was elected right up until he said he wasn't running again about how old he was. He was 78 years old when they elected him.
Yeah.
Trump is 78 years old now, and nobody's saying anything about it.
Well, fortunately, finally, the Democrats are beginning to.
Well, I hope so. And, I'm a political science major. I've got a degree in political science, and I'm going to tell you, in politics is a dirty business, period. And what the Democrats need to do is start fighting fire with fire. They're letting the Republicans come out like the cat lady and their stupid Kamala and all of this stuff, and they're not doing it. We want to show we're decent. You can do the same as they are, but still show you're decent. And what people need to do is get off this weird thing that look at what Tim Walz has done in the time he's been in office. He's been an actual fantastic governor.
He's been remarkable.
Yes, and remarkable. And people are looking. He came up, and I listened to that clip that you played, and he didn't. First of all, he didn't call someone individual weird. He said the Republicans were weird because of the way they act, which they are.
Well, I agree with you. And I think, in fact, he actually said, as he was talking about the things they were doing, wanting to control a woman's body, wanting to ban books, he said, it's just weird. What they're doing is just weird. I'm not even sure. Right. I should listen to it again. I'm not even sure he said they are weird. And I have no trouble with what they're doing is weird. What they're doing is very weird. I can't understand. One thing I can't understand is if you listen to Donald Trump, the way he talks, what he says he's going to do, what he said at his rally in St. Cloud the other day, if you stop and look, and now I minored in history with my degree. I also studied the World War II and fascism in World War II, and everything he's saying is identical to what Adolf Hitler did before Adolf Hitler became a powerful man. Yes.
And why people are saying, well, when somebody says he's another Hitler, and they're saying, oh, no, you can't say that. Yeah, you can. And you got to start saying it before it's too late. Because if they or any of us let this guy in the office, we're going to see another World War II Germany. I mean, that's all there is to it.
I certainly believe, Terry, that we will see the end of our democracy. Our children and our grandchildren will no longer live in a democracy. They will live in a dictatorship. Right. You know what? I'm really glad you called, Terry. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you gave me time on the radio. And again, I'm a big fan. I always have been. And I hope we hear more of you.
I'm a big fan of yours, Terry. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Thanks, Nancy.
Call us, kids, 952-946-6205. 946-6205. I want to see if you think Tim Walz should be on the ticket with Kamala Harris. And we've been talking a little bit about Tim Walz and his credentials. Sometimes we forget. And we voted for him. We think we kind of know. I've just pulled up a bunch of stuff so that we can remind ourselves of who this governor of ours, this Tim Walz, really is. And I'm talking here. So, okay. He is, of course, from a rural town. He's a 24-year veteran of the Army National Guard. Rose to a considerable rank there. A high school teacher, coached a football team to its first state championship. He was, of course, in the legislature, in Congress for a time. In 2003. No, I'll skip that part. He became governor in 2019. I'm looking, the lists are long, and I want to give you some things to really grab onto. Since he became governor, the Democrats, under his leadership, and we have both the House and Senate that is Democratic, and we better keep it that way because this is why we got this done for all of the people of Minnesota, not just the Democrats. It's meaningless to do things for just Democrats. We are a citizenry and we live together. This is for all of us. Democrats, under Walz's guidance, codified abortion rights, paid family and medical leave, paid sick leave, transgender rights protections, driver licenses for undocumented residents, restoration of voting rights for people when they're released from prison or jail, wider voting access, one-time rebates, a tax credit aimed at low-income parents with children, a $1 billion investment in affordable housing, including rental assistance, adopted background checks for private gun transfers and red flag warning system to take guns from people deemed by a judge to be a threat to themselves or others, banned conversion therapy for LGBTQ plus people, legalized recreational marijuana, expanded education funding, required a carbon-free electric grid by 2040, adopted a new reading curricula based on phonics in our education system, passed a massive $2.58 billion capital construction package, and a $300 million emergency infusion. That's what Minnesota has done since we gave the governor a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate here in Minnesota. That is impressive by any standards at all. And that is why, along with his warm demeanor and personality, the Democrats and Kamala Harris are looking at him. Another thing that he did that is just so huge, he's an educator, and he cares so deeply about educating our children. And, of course, if you know anything about the Project 2025 that the Republicans say is their roadmap into what they're going to do if Donald Trump wins, they want to abolish, listen to that carefully, they want to abolish the public school system and replace it with something that they like better, including all religious schools. Governor Walz saw to it that students in Minnesota are guaranteed not just free breakfasts, but free lunches. That is just such a great thing. That's a big guy, a big thing, and that's our Governor Walz. Of course, another that is talked about, and if I'll be perfectly honest with you, I love Governor Walz. I'd be thrilled if it's him. I don't think it's going to be. I think they are looking at what they need in states. We are a blue wall. We're an easier hope that we will continue to go Democratic. They absolutely need Pennsylvania. And that's why I think ultimately the choice will be Shapiro, the governor, of course, of Pennsylvania. My first choice would be somebody who I don't think they can choose. My second choice would be somebody that they probably shouldn't choose. Having said that, I'll share all of those thoughts with you when we come back. But as we're talking in our last segment about who you'd like to see on the ticket as Kamala Harris' vice presidential candidate, give me a call. Tell me what you think. And let's talk more about Tim Walz as well. I'm at 952-946-6205. This is Nancy Nelson sitting in for Matt McNeil here on the absolutely wonderful AM 950 Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Come back, friends. We are back. I hope you are too. Of course, that's silly. Of course you are, otherwise you wouldn't be hearing me. Hi, Nancy Nelson here at AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota, sitting in today for Matt McNeil. So glad to be with you, friends. Call me, 952-946-6205. We've spent some time talking about Kamala Harris's vice presidential candidate, who it is likely to be, how proud we are of the fact that Tim Walz is one of the final. They're looking at, well, there's Tim Walz, there's Pete Buttigieg, Mark Kelly, of course, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who is currently the transportation secretary under Biden's administration, Senator Mark Kelly out of Arizona. Oh, here's some interesting things. Tim Walz is 61 years old. Pete Buttigieg is 42 years old. Senator Mark Kelly out of Arizona is 60. J.R. Pritzker is 59, the governor of Illinois. Gretchen Whitmer, I should look up her age. I don't know her age. Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, is 46, and I need to find out how old Ray Cooper, who is the governor out of North Carolina, is as well. It's lovely Tim Walz is in that mix. I honestly think that because Pennsylvania is so crucial to us, that she will end up picking Shapiro. And there's nothing wrong with that. Shapiro is the governor of the state, and it presents something interesting because he is Jewish. There's nothing wrong with that. But These are the things, if we talk honestly with each other, without judging that somebody is saying something nasty about somebody. Of course, it's not nasty to say somebody is Jewish. That is to be supported totally. They talk about things like, well, we have a big challenge on our hands. We know that the Democrats who are in. They're going to vote for Kamala. But the people who will win or lose the election for us are all of those independents, those people who swing back and forth. And a lot of them have indicated they are not happy with Trump. We haven't had significant polls yet to show us how many of them aren't happy with a woman. And then add to that a woman of color, which is why many of the pundits who have been at this for a long time have said the only thing she can do is pick a straight white man to be the vice presidential candidate. It's so sad to even say out loud, but that's where we are today. We are also today with a woman of color at the top of our ticket. So we have to embrace the great progress and then insist that we have more progress. Cory Booker, one of the representatives out of New Jersey in the national arena, an African-American man, very good friend of Kamala's, and he was being interviewed this morning regarding her. And somebody said to him, you're not on the list as a vice presidential candidate possibility. And he laughed. He just laughed, and he said, no, I'm not. And wouldn't it be lovely if I could be? But we've got to talk honestly. We have a woman of color on the ticket. There is no way you can have an African-American male on the ticket as well. They wouldn't let us do it. And he didn't say it with animus or anger. He just said it as, this is the deal now. The deal now is that I would like, if my wish came true, Pete Buttigieg would be the vice president of the United States. And Kamala would get 8 years, and Pete would keep right on marching, and he will, I believe, be the first gay president of the United States of America. To say he's extraordinary is an understatement. If you did not see him on the air on Fox on Sunday, I am going to play this for you, because with a smile and a calm voice and deliberation, and don't interrupt me, he shredded this pretty blonde lady who is allegedly a news anchor on the Fox set. He did this yesterday. So I want you to listen.
That's a real reason I think she's going to win, is that most Americans already agree with her on the issues that they care about the most, that affect them the most, whether we're talking about choice and her stance on defending a woman's right to choose versus Donald Trump, who eliminated a right to choose in this country.
Well, he sent it back to the states, to be fair.
Let's be very clear. He is proud of the fact that he demolished the national right to choose in this country, period.
But there are states that are figuring this out. I mean, there are some that are, it's nearly impossible, a 6-week ban or less. But there are states in this country that allow no restrictions up until the due date of a child.
There was a national right to choose in this country, law of the land, for 50 years, which the vast majority of Americans believed was the right thing to do. But Donald Trump made a promise when he was a candidate, one of the few promises he actually kept, by the way. He didn't keep his promise of 6% economic growth. He didn't keep his promise to drain the swamp.
He did have a pandemic to deal with.
But even before the pandemic, America went into a manufacturing recession, which really hurt places like where I come from in the industrial Midwest. But anyway, my point is, he broke his promise for that kind of economic growth. He broke his promise to pass an infrastructure bill, right? He said he would do that. He failed to do it. The Biden-Harris administration got it done. He even broke his promise to that January 6th mob when he said, I will be at your side when you march down to the Capitol. But he actually did keep two promises. He kept his promise to destroy the right to choose in this country, and he kept his promise on tax cuts for the rich. And if you want to know what a second Trump term would be like, I would start by looking at those rare promises that he actually managed to keep.
He did say that he wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, but again, send it to the states where they are actually
empower the states to eliminate women's access to abortion, and also, as you know, the Republican Party continues to be interested in a national abortion ban.
Which he's disavowed completely.
Yeah, he's disavowed a lot of things. I don't believe him.
You
because
think
he
that,
lies all the time.
You think that his pledge that he would not pass a national ban is one that...
It's one that's going to go down with most of the promises that he's made and broken.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Buttigieg. The anchor on that show, a woman named Shannon Bream, Bream, I imagine she got off set and just went to some office and closed the door and cried. She did her best to hang in there, but he so brilliantly and with great craftsmanship just said, no, this. I don't believe him. He lied. He never shouted. But to do what he did is almost impossible to do. We take it for granted when we see somebody that skilled to do it. But, oh my goodness, he is beyond extraordinary. He's my first. I'd like it if he would be on the ticket. I don't think they are willing to risk it. A woman of color and a gay man, I think they'd be too afraid that they would lose a lot of independence, and that's really sad. The other that I really, really like is Mark Kelly, senator out of Arizona. Just a reminder, Mark Kelly, and you know, he's a good age. He's 60. But he's like the package. He won the senatorship by a hair's breadth in 2020. He was the first first Democrat to win that seat since 1962. That seat had been red and Republican since 1962, and he won it in 2020. He flew combat missions during the Gulf War. He was a naval aviator. He was selected by NASA to be a space shuttle pilot in 1996. He flew one extraordinary mission after another, the final mission on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. He has an identical twin named Scott, who ironically is also an astronaut. Both of them retired. He married Arizona Congressman Gabby Giffords in 2007. And in 2011, of course, she was the congresswoman who was nearly killed when she was shot, and 6 people next to her were killed when she was having a town hall meeting in an open parking lot. She has never recovered. She was an elected representative from the state of Arizona, and she speaks with great difficulty, walks with great difficulty. He has been at her side all along. He's the package. A military hero, an astronaut, a wife who survived extreme gun violence. My concern is, and a lot of people, this is not my original thought, experts are saying this, were they to tap him, and he'd be remarkable. Because let's remember, this isn't just about who can help us win a state, and they've got to win Arizona. It's about who in 1 second can become president of the United States if the president somehow has a tragedy, a crisis, and goes down. Clearly, Mark Kelly is more than equipped to do that. But if they tap him for the vice presidential candidate, they will lose that senatorial seat. Now, the governor of Arizona is a Democrat, and she will appoint, undoubtedly, temporarily to fill that seat, another Democrat. That doesn't mean we hang on to that as a Democratic seat. That means that somebody has to go in and battle, and they may be a lesser candidate than Mark Kelly was, because Mark Kelly was so extraordinary with his credentials, and we could lose that seat, and that's a big danger for us. So it's complicated. But it is August 7 that she has to let the nation know who her candidate will be to be at her side as her vice presidential candidate. And all of that is kind of interesting. I don't know if you understand the dynamics of that. I only sort of understand them. So if I make any mistakes, you'll forgive me. But they need to get her vice presidential candidate named. Once they've done that, they are going to do a virtual, I assume like a big, ginormous Zoom meeting, holding of the votes to cast for who will be the Democratic nominee. And they will do that right after they name her vice presidential candidate on August 7th. They will do that, in other words, before the national convention, before we see them all standing on the floor waving signs that say Kamala, and then people say, and the proud state of Minnesota casts as their ballot for the next president of the United States. Before they do all of that, they're going to have a virtual vote that will, in fact, solidify that all of these delegates will have been on this virtual meeting, and all of these delegates will have cast their vote. It will be exactly the process that it will be when they get to the end of August to the National Convention. But they're going to do it virtually first, because it's either Indiana or Ohio that has a law that says by August such and such a date, the candidates' names have to be submitted so that they can appear on the ballot. And our convention this year comes after that deadline date in either Indiana or Ohio. And though the officials in that state said to the Democratic Party, don't worry, we'll put it doesn't matter. We'll forego that rule and we'll put the name on the ballot. Wisely, the Democrats have said, yeah, not so much, we don't think we believe you, which is why they're holding this virtual meeting. And so she will, in fact, be the nominee. And then we will see it become official with all of the drama on the floor. Speaking of official with all the drama, I have no idea how that was a segue. Patrick, it's always so nice to have your help. I appreciate you. You know, you're kind of that unsung hero. Nothing here happens without you, and I'm really glad to share this experience with you. Thanks for your help today.
Oh, thanks for having me as part of the show today. It was a pleasure to help produce you the last today and last Monday when you were in with us. Certainly a lot of people always happy to have you on board. I think this is the third time now that we've fortunately been able to have you.
Fourth
You
see, you're having so much fun, you're not even counting. Well, thank you, Patrick. That's very sweet. What he doesn't tell you is that I drive him crazy and he goes to his car and cries when the show is over.
Yep, that's where I'm headed right after this.
I know, Patrick. I'm very grateful to you. And friends, I'm so grateful to you. Now, here's the deal. We're all very, 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 very busy. All of us has absolutely no time. But we all have to do something. We have to do something. Literally, our democracy is at stake. If you have 1 hour between now and November, do something with it. Go to dfl.org, dfl.org, and you just click on a couple of things, and it says volunteer. And they'll ask you for your zip code, and you could work a phone bank for 1 hour between now and November. You could write a few postcards by hand in 1 hour. If that's all you have between now and November, you could knock on a couple of doors for 1 hour. You have to do something. We are being called, and it's our responsibility. Okay, I told you before, I want to tell you again. I miss you. I love being back, substituting for my dear, wonderful friend, Matt McNeil. You stay tuned to AM 950. Take good care of yourself. Be sure you vote. And my friends, this is Nancy Nelson. Go out, and make a difference.